Morning. I'm Palmer McIntyre with Piedmont Land Conservancy and Piedmont Legacy Trails. We're really glad to see y'all today, especially because we had to reschedule this from last week due to that crazy hurricane. This is the third of our four-part fall conversation series, and we have one more that will happen in November. But first, before I tell you about that, I want to acknowledge our sponsors for this series. We have Alta Planning and Design, Duke Energy, Arete Structures, Piedmont Transportation Professionals, and the North Carolina chapter of the American Planning Association. We're really grateful to their support for helping make this possible. So like I said, this is the third, this is the third of a four-part series. Today we'll be talking about local trail tourism and economic recovery. And we are thrilled to have Amy Allison with the North Carolina Outdoor Recreation Industry Office with us this morning. So we'll be introducing her in a few minutes and hear what she has to say. But first, I would like to talk about our next series, next conversation, which is on November 19th at 10 a.m. The topic is Equity on Trails, Creating Inclusive Outdoor Spaces. And we'll have our friends and partners with the Greensboro Downtown Greenway with us. A panel that will be moderated by Dabney Sanders, who's the project manager for the Downtown Greenway. And they'll be talking about their inclusive planning process for the Greenway, which include one, engaging traditionally marginalized neighborhoods. And we'll have James Griffin with us, who is representing the Warnersville neighborhood, and talk about his experiences in engaging with the Greenway. And then the second is creating Woven Works, which is one of the Downtown Greenway's 4 cornerstone art installations. And they included interactive and accessible elements for people with disabilities in this art installation. And we'll have the artist from Minnesota, Randy Walker, who designed Woven Works, and then Phelps Sprinkle, who is a citizen advocate for people with disabilities, and talk about how he helped facilitate that process. So you can register for this last conversation series at our website, piedmonttrails.org, and we will again have a recording, as we do for all of our conversations, available on our website. So look for that there, and we'll hope to see you on November 19th. So first, I would like to introduce our Piedmont Legacy Trails team. We have Jesse Day with PTRC, it's given a wave right there. And then we have Brianna Hofferman with Piedmont Legacy Trails. She's our Piedmont Legacy Trails coordinator. So
hello, everyone.
We've had a great time pulling this series together for y'all. So just a few logistical notes. We will, oh dear, what did I just do? Okay. We will have everyone on mute for the entire webinar, and we'll use the chat for our questions. So you can make sure your question is in there and we'll respond to it. And then we are recording this webinar, so you can look for that link. We'll send it out to everyone who has registered. And then regarding credits, you see the number here for the planning credits and the PE credits, all those instructions. Those instructions are also on our website if you missed them here. So next, we will turn it over to Jesse Day. He's going to talk about the effort that we've been doing in our region, the Piedmont Legacy Trails region, which is North Central Piedmont, about our outdoor recreation planning process. And then we'll come back and introduce Amy.
Great, thanks, Palmer. Very excited to be here, and I don't want to take too much time away from Amy, but I wanted to just touch on some planning activity we're doing in the Triad around outdoor recreation, since he's working on that on a statewide level, just to give a sense of what's being talked about, planned, and strategized in the Triad going forward. And so as part of our economic development district activities, we're conducting an outdoor recreation plan for the Piedmont Triad, the 12 counties from Elkin to Mebane down to Troy, the Virginia line. So just touching on that, you know, we've modeled a bit of our kind of structure that's guided the plan process around the state outdoor Recreation Advisory Council. And so what we're doing is really cataloging what we've got for assets around public lands, our private businesses that are involved either wholly in outdoor recreation or just partly. Also trying to emphasize stewardship and conservation, as a key tenet to promoting outdoor recreation. And then I'll talk a little bit about kind of our next steps going forward. So the plan is not quite done yet, but as I mentioned, of course, with any good planning process, try to outline some values, vision, and mission. And I won't read those out to you, but they do mirror a lot of what's talked about at the state and federal level around promoting outdoor recreation, conservation as a way of stewardship, and all those other things that kind of frame around that. So we've been working on this process with a diverse group from local government to outdoor-oriented businesses to funding partners, public and private landowners for the better part of a year and a half or so. And this is what we've outlined through those meetings. And so COVID's, like with most things, has slowed us down a bit this year, but we hope to finish that plan up in the near future. So really, it just kind of looking at our assets in the Triad in the 12 counties. It's pretty amazing when you think about what we have. You know, there's about 168,000 plus acres public lands, and so you've got a national forest, state parks in there, 6 major rivers, scenic byways, and when we talk about scenic byways, those would be roadway byways. 5 state designated trails. You've got a series of blueways and trails, as well as just a rich network of county, city parks, and greenways, and that totals about 550 miles of trail in the Triad. And so hopefully you can see on this slide, as we've laid out the Triad and sort of the mileage by county that exists. These would be, so this is publicly, open mileage. Obviously there's some private lands that are open and have trails or that are kind of privately available, but this is what is publicly available. And so it's pretty amazing when you think about those 550 miles and what's laid out there. And so you see, a place like Montgomery County's got 114 miles, real small population, but a rich network of trails, mostly due to the national forest lands there. And just shows all the great work that our partners are doing at Piedmont Legacy Trails on the ground in the local areas, as well as some of our local and county and state partners to really build this network out. So this is, there's lots of other plans for future trails in some of those other counties that hopefully our efforts will continue to shepherd forward. And so as part of the outdoor recreation plan, we've compiled those private outdoor rec businesses. So we had, as a regional council of governments, we had a good handle on what we're doing publicly, but what is the private side and how does it contribute to outdoor recreation? So we've got about over 450 outdoor rec businesses that are, doing some sort of contribution to the outdoor rec industry. And so we've compiled that, put that together, and you can see the different various categories we've looked at. Now you could argue breweries and wineries may not be contributing to outdoor recreation, but I think that's one of the things that folks that are using our rivers, our trails, our state parks in the area are also interested in those types of things as well. So we've put that into our kind of asset mapping. Mentioned conservation and stewardship. No surprise here. This is modeled off the national effort of Leave No Trace, which I know Amy's had a big part in. But wanted to emphasize that it's really important. If you are using conservation lands or recreational assets, it's very important to kind of preserve that for the next person visiting. Otherwise, it's going to be folks aren't going to come back and use that. So that's a really important tenet that I think sometimes gets overlooked. So we wanted to emphasize that, and we have a chapter focused on conservation and stewardship in our plan. So what are we doing kind of going for? So we need to finish up the plan itself. We're kind of developing some goals for an outdoor recreation website to promote visitation. So this would be less sort of like the planning side of for building a recreation infrastructure, but more what is the visitor going to want to see coming to the Triad. So we've got the URL there, nctriadoutdoors.com, and have some funding in our economic development district to put together a website and promote that. So we're kind of putting the framework of the goals of that together in the next couple of weeks, and hope to hire a consultant to help build that and have that really launched hopefully early next year with the plan itself coming out. Want to develop those marketing partnerships early on. You know, we've worked with our rural and urban counties to kind of promote the marketing that maybe could help travelers to both destinations. And so we want to continue to develop those relationships. One thing we also like to do is, looking at those over 458 businesses and the public side of recreation. What is the economic impact? There's examples from other parts of the state, the coast, in terms of the impact of maybe specific trail development or specific site like the mountain bike park in the Boone area. But we'd like to get a better understanding of that kind of collective impact for the Piedmont Triad. So we've earmarked some funds for that. And then also, talk about what we're doing here with outdoor recreation, the importance of it. I think it's just one of those things that's, if you're going to advocate for anything, you've got to go ahead and educate, talk about what you're doing, promote it. So those are kind of our next steps. And I wanted to, as a jumping off point, just thinking about trends in kind of tourism to our area. Thanks to Brianna and Palmer for putting some of this data together from Visit NC, but just looking at our rural counties. So we're taking out Guilford and Forsyth right now. There's a lot of travel, business travel to that area. But just looking at our rural counties and visitor expenditures. Now this is a point in time, this is 2019. You can see, our larger counties, Alamance, Davidson, Randolph, that's their visitor spending is 2019. And then some of the other counties there, you can see what that impact is. We're pretty huge numbers when you think about that as in terms of tourism in our area. And so one of the things we wanted to show is the growth. So on the next slide, we've got the growth. So that's the same order of counties in terms of increase from 2018 to 2019, just thinking about visitor expenditures. And one of the big jumps that we saw were in Stokes County, was the third highest jump in the state in that same time period. And so, I think that some of the work they've done around apps and promoting the outdoor recreation assets they have in that county, I think has benefited that jump there. So obviously, some really positive notes here. Granted, this is, pre-COVID and we're in sort of a different state of mind, but from our previous fall conversation series, you can think about the types of trips we're taking closer to home, local, outdoor recreation oriented, where you can space out. So be interested to see what sort of numbers we have in 2020 when those come in. So I'll leave it at that. So I don't want to take any more of your time from time with Amy today. So I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions, be happy to answer. Palmer, if you want to grab the screen away, or Amy, grab the screen for me. Thank you.
Hang on. So before we introduce Amy, given this time of COVID, which has had a tremendous impact on local economies in a lot of different ways, we wanted to ask a few questions of y'all. And if you could just respond to these questions in the chat. It's more just to think about how you have responded to COVID locally. So if you're a destination marketer in your area, how are you marketing your product, your outdoor recreation products differently? And if you're a land manager, how are you managing your land resources differently? So because this season has had incredible impacts in many different ways. And then if you're not, don't fit in one of those audiences above, then how are you engaging with your audience differently and effectively during this time? And we'll bring up your comments towards the end of Amy's conversation. So let me introduce Amy. She is the director of North Carolina's Outdoor Recreation Industry Office, which is a division of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. She is responsible for growing and supporting the outdoor recreation economy at the state level through collaboration with existing outdoor businesses, local governments, and communities who rely on our rich, diverse outdoor recreation landscape. So before joining in this position, she was the marketing director for Eagle's Nest Outfitters, as the popular hammocks in Asheville, North Carolina. And she's also a co-founder of the Outdoor Gear Builders of Western North Carolina and is on the advisory council of the Growing Outdoors Partnership. So she's got a tremendous amount of experience in this arena, and I am going to turn it over to Amy.
All right, thanks so much. And good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I think I've done it. Thumbs up if you can see it. There we go. Thank you. And thank you, Jesse. It was so cool to see that overview of the kind of the outdoor recreation economy in the area that so many of you all are working in. And 450 plus outdoor rec businesses is just astounding for that space, I feel like. And coming to you from Asheville, North Carolina, I can tell you that breweries are definitely a very important part of that industry as well. So, and thank you, Palmer, for the introduction. That was wonderful. So as she mentioned, I'm with the Economic Development Partnership, but my role is the director for the North Carolina Outdoor Recreation Industry Office. And North Carolina was one of the first 5 states in the nation to have an office for outdoor recreation industry, to really give the industry in the state a cohesive voice at the state level, but also at the national level. So, I'm working a lot to just remind others in the nation that North Carolina really is the hub of the outdoor recreation industry on the East Coast. We've got so many good things going on here. So I want to, let's see if I can, there we go. So just kind of want to give that overview at the national level as well, just so folks can see the size of our industry here. So the outdoor recreation industry as a whole in the nation accounts for 2.2% of the GDP. And the cool thing about that is the second bullet point down, that the outdoor recreation industry is growing at a faster pace than the overall economy as a whole. And this report was put out by the Bureau of Economic Analysis in 2017, and they are going to very soon drop numbers for 2018, 2019. So we'll have some updated results, and everything indicates that as an industry, we have grown over the past several years. So we should see these numbers growing. And here, just to kind of bring that down to the North Carolina level, the outdoor recreation industry here, it's a $28 billion industry, which is huge. And 260,000 direct jobs are impacted or are part of this industry. So when we talk about these numbers and we talk about conservation and the need for more public lands and to take care of these places, these are the dollars behind that and why it's so important, because these public lands, these places that we're all working on and going out and protecting and playing on, that's the infrastructure for this industry. And without that infrastructure, we can't have this strong, vibrant industry in our state. And so kind of as we move to 2020, we know that there've been some uncertainty in the industry. But what we've seen is this huge increase in outdoor recreation and people getting out on the trails. And I know you've all seen it. I feel like everyone here today has some kind of vested interest in the outdoors and spends a lot of time out there. So you're seeing that impact. You're seeing the numbers, the parking lots filled. So it's silver lining that we have all these people going out, but we also have to make sure that we're managing that well. But I wanted to just share some of these. These are in this study, the top 5 activities that were increased over the past 8 months or so. So a 63% increase in cycling. And so this is in that activity, but also in sales for those businesses as well. I don't know if anyone here has tried to get a bike or a bike rack or anything like that. We had to get a bike for my 11-year-old son in June. because he grows out of his bike every year, as 11-year-olds do. But it was virtually impossible. It's so hard to find those products right now. And people are already getting into their 2021 inventory. Paddle sports, a 56% increase, golf 51, which we know is huge in our state, camping 31, and bird watching a 22% increase. And bird watching, that's just, people generally getting out, nature viewing, getting out on the trails. So this is really exciting for our industry. I wanted to also just show, these were some numbers, and this is from June, just to show some of that specific increase, sorry about that, with our state parks. And I kind of boiled this down to some of the state parks that are in the region that most of y'all are coming from today. But to see, what is this, Mayo River, so this is from June 2022, from June 2019 to June 20, a 214% increase in visitation is just crazy. Even 58, 40%, 11%. The cool thing is when you look at like Haw River State Park, that 1%, and some of these, we have to think about some swim areas were closed, and there were some spaces that were closed for one reason or another. So the numbers might not really indicate visitors who were wanting to go into those spaces, but it also shows that we have an opportunity to disperse some of our use and remind visitors that there are all of these amazing areas they can go to. And as counties, as tourism partners, that we can advertise and market some of these other spaces a little bit better to disperse use. But these numbers are just wild, and it continued through July, August, September, and I'm sure we'll see that from our October numbers at state parks as well. So in June, Visit NC put together a residents sentiment study, and really they were kind of trying to figure out, like, are residents in North Carolina interested in traveling? How are they going to travel? How are they going to get out? And so with that, we had them ask some specific questions about people's interest in getting out and recreating, and how they were caring for public spaces. So here's some of our findings from that, and it's great for all of us here. So some of the findings showed that sustainability efforts were important to North Carolina residents, but the most were in protecting wildlife, natural areas, and habitats. That being outdoors is important to North Carolinians, as 3 in 5 residents feel access to outdoor recreation in North Carolina is important. And over 50% of our residents are participating in outdoor recreational activities on a daily or weekly basis. So the need for these spaces and need for more of them, and access to these public lands and trails and spaces to get out and recreate is really important. And that North Carolinians as a whole just love their state. They feel pride in our spaces and want to do what they can to protect them. So we never really ask those questions or done a study at the state level like this. So this is really interesting to see. This study went out in June, and there's another one that's happening right now that we're waiting on the results for, just to kind of gauge that with early COVID activity, and then where people are now and how they're feeling about traveling and getting out. So even with all the craziness of 2020, there's been some great things that have happened, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir on this one, but the Great American Outdoors Act was passed in August of this year. And this is so great because it shows that the nation is really prioritizing investment in the outdoors, and knows that it's going to provide jobs and create access to reach the goal of really getting every citizen outdoors and having access to be able to get outdoors. And this kind of goes to, talking about the recovery piece with COVID, and we have to have these spaces. And that what we're seeing is that people are traveling right now, and they're traveling to areas where they can get outdoors and where they can recreate and find trails, because that's how they are moving and staying active, but feeling safe about doing it. And I thought that this was really interesting. This came out, I think it was in Smoky Mountain News in either October or September, but Jackson County in the western part of the state, and talking about recovery and how outdoor recreation is such an important piece of that. They were sharing that in this fiscal year, so just starting in July, their TDA has already pulled in a full 75% of its budgeted revenue for the entire year. So we were talking about tourism and those numbers being so down. I've heard, WIT Title with Visit and See has said often that we won't see our tourism numbers get back to where they were before COVID until 2022, 2023. But then you hear this from Jackson County, and that, they're actually seeing an increase right now. And, a lot of that has to do with their natural assets, and that they are in an area that's surrounded by, amazing places to get outdoors and amazing opportunities for people to recreate. So I think that that's a cool number to share. And then just this reminder with that Land and Water Conservation Fund, that there is this stateside assistance. I think a lot of people think of it as this, federal dollars, but I like to remind folks, and again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, that there is money to be used for our counties, our municipalities, and it can be used for, anything to get outdoors and recreate. So it might be a trail system, it might be a local park, it might be a swimming pool or a baseball diamond. So there's lots of opportunities to use that funding. So I encourage you to look into that if you haven't already. And then I want to share a program that I've been working on closely with Visit NC. And this is a new program that we'll be calling Outdoor NC. And this is a statewide stewardship initiative to ensure that visitors and residents across the state have the knowledge and skills to protect our natural landscapes. So we started working on this in April. And shortly after, we reached out to the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. Full disclosure, I used to work for the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics for 3 years, traveled all over the country, taught the Leave No Trace principles, which was a really fun job. So we reached out to them. And again, a lot of people understand the principles, but don't know that there's this nonprofit center that's driving the principles, driving the education, driving the science behind the whys of why we practice these 7 principles when we're in the outdoors. So all science-based, and Leave No Trace, they've been doing this for 25 years and working with partners across the nation to learn best practices as to why we're encouraging these 7 principles. So as the state of North Carolina, we signed an MOU with the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics in July to really start this 3-year program. And so where we are with that right now, we've signed the MOU. We put out a study to a lot of our land management agencies and conservation partners across the state in early September to really learn the specific impacts that our partners are seeing across the state. Because when we launched this program officially in December, we want to make sure that we're really speaking to the impacts that we're seeing here in the state of North Carolina. And these 7 principles can be adapted, and we can use that language and tailor it to specific activities or specific ecosystems. And that's what we're going to do. So you'll see these 7, but you'll see them tailored to North Carolina specific impacts. And so with this partnership with the center, we're going to, work with them. We're doing listening sessions right now with partners across the state. And so we're going to listen to the impacts and the challenges that our partners here are seeing, transfer that back to the knowledge that the center has for this science-based information and education that we're going to share across the state. And we're going to use it to increase visitor understanding and desire to care for North Carolina. We have a great opportunity by partnering with Visit and See, and them kind of running this program is because they can reach these visitors before they even leave home, so that we have visitors already thinking about how they're going to take care of our spaces before they even get to North Carolina to recreate. And we're going to, hopefully reduce the negative impacts resulting from outdoor recreation, leisure, and this increased visitorship that we're seeing right now. And through this program, we're going to do all of these things as well as so much more. But dispersed visitation right now, I think, is really key, because we have certain areas that are just overrun, where the parking lots are filling up, the trails are impacted so much that it's going to take a long time to reverse some of that impact that we're seeing from overuse right now. Just overall responsible travel, in general, just stewardship and kind of creating this pride of place from our residents that kind of trickles down to our visitors. as well. And talk a lot about the whys of a program like this. A lot of times people don't understand, you know, they hear the principles, they kind of get it, but when you really dive into the whys, even folks who've been in the outdoors and are athletes and have been recreating for years and years don't really know, you know, why we don't throw a cigarette butt in the campfire, or why we, you know, why is it not okay to leave dog poop on the ground? So all of these things, as we explain it, we get a lot of those good aha moments. And with Outdoors NC, we're going to work with partners all across the state, and we want, no matter where we're traveling, and whether that's visitors or residents, wherever they're traveling, wherever they're recreating, that they're going to see this cohesive message from the mountains to the Piedmont to the coast, everywhere in between, and really see the state as a place that's taking care of our places. We're taking care of our people, and really taking care of others' experiences when they're out there on the trail as well. So here's kind of a list of folks that we see as ideal partners for a program like this. And for me, and someone who works on a really collaborative level, to link up these partners across the way is going to be really exciting, to have the opportunity to link our industry with some of our conservation partners and with our tourism partners to all do the same work together. I think it's really going to be powerful. Here's just one example of some messaging that we've already put out, just on how people can get outdoors right now. We, you know, early on with COVID, we saw a lot of our public lands closing down, and there wasn't a place to get outdoors and to recreate. And so we want to make sure that we are taking responsibility and being good users of the outdoors, so that like right now, we're seeing numbers increase again, so that we don't get to a point where our public spaces are shut down again. So this is just kind of recommendations, again, using those 7 principles on how to get outdoors, but how to do it in a safe way. You know, people right now need a plan B. So if they go out and the parking lot is full and they can't get to the space where they plan to go, well, what's plan B? How can they still get out, be healthy with, you know, again, another plan. So this is just, again, those 7 principles for getting outdoors right now and staying safe and staying healthy. And then another program that we've been working on, and this is a national program, the Recreate Responsibly program. And this was put together early on as a way to hopefully be able to get outdoors, make sure our spaces stayed open. And it's a collaboration of hundreds of partners across the nation: Leave No Trace, the North Face, Outdoor Afro, REI, all coming together to kind of share this messaging. And so it was a hashtag campaign, which we all know social media is really, really powerful and really important, of just kind of reminding people how to get out and how to stay safe. And we have a North Carolina coalition for Recreate Responsibly right now. But again, it's just this shared messaging, and it's kind of based on those 7 principles again. But how do you get out? How do you recreate? And there's a whole toolkit online that people can access and use, and it's free. And so I encourage you, if you're seeing a ton of increased use in the space that you're managing or working with, to get online and look at those resources. Here's some example of some of the resources that are there that you can share. It's really great imagery. It's quick, it's easy for people to, you know, for their eyes to land on and not to scroll through too quickly. And this is just an example of some of the partners in North Carolina who have joined that. And then there's the website there, just recreateresponsibly.org. And, you know, part of this messaging too, I'll go back, is the last one here, just building an inclusive outdoors. And that's just all about, you know, at this time and always, the outdoors is a safe space for all people. It doesn't matter where you come from, the color of your skin, but this is an inclusive place where everyone can get outdoors and feel safe. And this is one of the last things I'm going to share with you before we open it up. One of my jobs is to continue to help our existing industry, outdoor recreation industry, grow, as well as encourage new businesses to move to the state. And this is a really cool program that we put together last year. We had our first cohort, but it's the Waypoint Accelerator program. And it's an outdoor entrepreneurship and innovation accelerator program, really working with outdoor focused companies to help build and grow their businesses. We had the first cohort here last year, this here in the Asheville area. This year it's virtual as everything is. So we're opening it up across the state and really across the nation. So if anyone here knows of anyone who has an idea for a business, maybe they've started an outdoor recreation business and are interested in kind of some leadership and some mentorship to grow that, this program is right now taking applications. I think there's like a week or so more on the application process there. So I definitely encourage you to look into that, waypointaccelerator.com. And it's a great way to connect the industry. And y'all talked about the great industry kind of out in the Piedmont area that you're working in. And, you know, we find when we can get the industry together, hang out, share stories, we're really able to kind of highlight the size and the powerful impact of our industry. And we've been able to do a lot of collective work in that way. And this, sorry, this was from a slideshow from last week. This is the Outdoor Economy Conference. I think that Brianna sent out a code to everyone to hopefully be able to log on. But we do this conference annually, and it's a national conference. This year we had 20 to 30 different states and I think 5 countries who logged on and were involved with this. And we bring in national speakers and put them on a platform with our local state leaders to really talk about the issues affecting the outdoor economy in our state and in our nation. And you can see some of the topics of focus here: diversity, equity, inclusion, next generation, healthy communities, entrepreneurship and innovation, and building outdoor communities. And y'all are doing that great work right now to build outdoor community in your area through the plan that you're working on. And so, but I encourage you to, if you signed on and were able to use that code to log in last week, go back and listen to all those sessions because it was really powerful. And the message that we heard throughout the month of conversations was the time is now as an industry for us to really act, for us to get funding, for us to really make powerful change. We're seeing increased interest in all of this increase, all of these first-time users. I see them as advocates and future advocates to protect the places that we love to play and do, you know, help further the work that a lot of folks on this webinar are doing today. And that's what I have for you.
Thanks so much, Amy. We do have a couple questions coming in. The first one is, what elements does a county, municipality, or community need to have in place to both reduce barriers for visitation as well as increase opportunities to attract visitors to their local community?
I mean, I think, again, Jesse kind of laid out a plan there earlier and the work that they're doing. I think we are in such a special place in North Carolina. We are, you know, we have an abundance of outdoor recreation opportunities. And so what I would say is to really look at that. I know that a lot of areas are doing some asset mapping to really identify what those spaces are. The work, like Jesse showed earlier, identifying the industry partners that are in the area, and I say, you know, reaching across county lines, reaching across industry lines, and bringing everybody to the table. There's so much interest in this from sectors that you wouldn't even think about, that people who see kind of the power of this industry as a whole. And so I think bringing everyone to the table, identifying those assets, identifying those businesses, and then coming up with that plan. And a lot of those folks are marketing partners. We've been able to work with some great marketing partners who love the outdoors and sometimes have time to do, you know, some pro bono work and really work with our counties and other partners to help out. But there's a lot of interest in raising awareness around outdoor recreation right now. So again, now's the time.
Okay, we have a second question from Micah Bray, who's actually joining us from Atlanta. He says, between the Great American Outdoors Act and the Land and Water Conservation Fund, are these sources of funding enough to cover needed infrastructure / facilities maintenance across the state? If not, what other funding sources can state parks utilize?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a great step, right? So any funding is good funding, so we'll take it. But you know, with the Great American Outdoors Act and kind of you're right, there are those two pieces there. So there's land and water conservation funding, as well as this money that's really specifically used for those deferred maintenance that I think, we're being asked about here. And that's, I mean, it's going to help. And I think what it's going to do is also help some of our agencies redirect some of the money that they were planning for these maintenance issues that can go, towards, who knows what, all the different needs that our land management agencies have. So is it enough? I mean, the backlog is huge. So, but again, we're not going to, I think we got to look at it and be excited about what we have and the opportunity that we have with that funding.
Another comment related to that is, with state parks being so heavily visited right now, the impacts in terms of trash, in terms of trail impacts, it's causing a greater need for maintenance activities. So it's like how to balance those, encouraging people to come, yet managing the impact on the environment and the education about leave no trace. And that's why I'm really excited about that initiative, because I think it's a great opportunity to educate people, because a lot of people have never been to state parks before. They don't necessarily know like all the different protocol, or just the trash pickup has just been phenomenal that we've heard from state park officials.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, in some of those listening sessions that we've had around outdoorsy and with some of our land management agencies, that continues to come up. Trash right now is huge. And Palmer, you make a good point with a lot of these first time users. It's not like people go out and are trying to be malicious or do something that's going to, potentially, cause lasting impact. It's just that people haven't been taught maybe the best way to get out and recreate, and they don't know. If they see those initials carved in that bench from someone before them, then they assume, well, this is a place I can do that. So again, I try to remind people, that first time users, we want those folks out there, but we need to, I think right now is the time for us all to be just very forgiving in general, and just kind of remember that it is an opportunity to share a little education and to not be shy about doing that in a, in a safe and caring way.
Thanks, Amy. We have one more question, just talking about working together for this kind of, the question is, what is the message you would suggest to get together to get different county CVBs and tourism agencies to work together? For example, are there counties that put together shared strategic plans and funding plans?
Yeah, I mean, again, Jesse mentioned that one earlier today, and they're, reaching across county lines and really working together to build this plan. I've seen some counties that are kind of doing it just within their county, but a lot of regions that are making it happen right now. And what I would say is to, I often talk about, Palmer mentioned that I worked at, before this, and our CFO there, he loves the outdoors. He's a financial guy. He's an accountant, right? But he wanted to get in the outdoor industry so he could wear flip-flops to work every single day. He didn't want to wear a suit. So I like to remind people too that it's not just like your typical outdoor industry really spans all these different sectors. So there's so many people that we can reach out to. Look, your lawyer in town, your banker, that might be what they do 9 to 5, but they have this vested interest more than likely in outdoor recreation if they're living in North Carolina. We know that lifestyle piece is so huge for folks here. So I would say, don't be shy, reach out to me. I do so much connecting folks within the state and just reminding them of the other partners in their area who have interest in this. And I just say, do it. Years ago in the western part of the state, we started recognizing that there was this powerful industry here, but we weren't really connected. So honestly, there was about 3 of us, and we got on the phone and started calling our other industry partners and just said, hey, let's get together at a brewery one night. Let's all get together. We had so many people show up that were just excited to connect with the rest of the industry and put faces to names. And then, from there, it's grown into a large organization that's really influencing and impacting the area. And we're working with our tourism partners and our economic developers. And so I say, just make that first phone call is what I would say to you.
Are there any more questions from anybody? This has been a great conversation. Amy, thank you so much for spending your morning with us and to have your expertise, your background, your experiences, and I think we've learned some valuable lessons and maybe looking for some new opportunities. And these regional outdoor recreation planning processes are a really great opportunity to start bringing in these different partners. So we'll look forward to doing that here in the Piedmont. And for those of you who are outside of the Piedmont region, encourage you to do the same in your own regions. We appreciate you being here this morning. So we will look for those of you who can come back on November 19th at 10 o'clock to talk about inclusive trail planning. We'll see you then. And if you have any further questions, you can let us know through our website. And like I said, Brianna will post a recording of this and share it out to the group. And Amy is saying in the chat, don't hesitate to reach out. She has her email address there. We'll include that in our follow-up email as well, in case you didn't catch it here now. All right, well, have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine, this last of the great fall weather. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.